Hello and welcome to another enlightening episode of Power Talk, the platform we're using to discuss energy issues affecting Zambia while exploring sustainable solutions. I'm your host, Victor Mwila. In our first episode, we looked at the current energy crisis in Zambia and several solutions for communities such as solar and gas as alternatives. Today, we continue with the conversation by focusing on the water balance and its crucial role in hydropower generation. I introduce to you my guests from the Zambezi River Authority, ZRA, and ZESCO shortly after this break. Don't go away. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Power Talk, your go-to program for in-depth discussions and views and short stories from communities on the most pressing energy issues in Zambia. Our topic on this episode is water balance and its crucial role in hydropower generation. To help us understand this topic, we have esteemed guests from the Zambezi River Authority and ZESCO. Joining us from ZRA is Engineer Christopher Chisense, Director, Water Resources and Environmental Management. Mr. Chisense, I would like to welcome you to Power Talk today.
Thank you very much.
And from ZESCO, we have Engineer Wesley Lwindi, Director, Power Generation. Engineer Lwindi, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for having us on the program.
So as we discuss issues of water balance related to power generation, we are starting with ZRA, Zambezi River Authority. Just tell us what's your mandate so that we understand what exactly you are doing in this area.
Thank you very much. Once again, just to express our appreciation as Zambezi River Authority for giving us this opportunity to reach out to more members of the public to explain the Zambezi River Authority. So Zambezi River Authority is a binational institution. Simply put, it's owned by two governments of two countries. In this case, the government of the Republic of Zambia and the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Now, in terms of how we were established, the parliaments of the two countries enacted or passed a law called the Zambezi River Authority Act in October of 1987. So there are two pieces of legislation, one in Zambia and the other one in Zimbabwe, both called the Zambezi River Authority Act, which established Zambezi River Authority. Now, getting closer to home in terms of your question, the two countries, Zambia and Zimbabwe, their border is made up of a shared river section. Now, that river is the Zambezi River. So the two countries mandated Zambezi River Authority to look after the section of the Zambezi River that forms the common border between the two countries, with a view to ensure that whatever we do as ZRA, we contribute to the socio-economic development of each of the two countries. Now, by the time we were established, one point along that river already had an existing facility, the Kariba Dam, and the lake that it holds back, Lake Kariba. So our mandate includes looking after Kariba Dam and managing Lake Kariba or Kariba Reservoir. That also extends to us allocating water for power generation to the two companies that own and operate each of the two power stations at Kariba. Namely in Zambia, ZESCO Limited, that owns and operates the Kariba North Bank Power Station, where Engineer Lwindi is coming from, and of course the sister institution, Zimbabwe Power Company, that owns and operates the Kariba South Bank Power Station.
We have experienced arguably one of the worst droughts in the history of the country. How has this impacted the hydrological cycles and water availability in this country? Of course, sharing with Zimbabwe.
Okay, the starting point is, I'm sure you agree with me. I normally give this example. If we put aside the issues of using an umbrella to protect yourself from the sun's rays, principally an umbrella is used to cover yourself when it's raining. And then there comes a time in the year when you no longer need an umbrella because it has stopped raining. Now, when you apply that to a river system, when it's raining, it means the water levels in a river system, be it a lake or a river, are going to increase naturally. When it stops raining, it actually means the water levels in the lake or river system will also reduce. So there's a natural increase and reduction in the water levels in a water system, be it a river or lake, following the rainfall pattern. Now, when you come to the El Nino situation, it takes you, after affecting the environmental conditions, to the extremes of those variations. So in some regions, when it's raining, it gives extremes of water as a result of excess rainfall, and you hear of floods. Then, in our case, like in the Kariba catchment, what is predominant when it comes to El Nino weather conditions, it creates drier conditions, which imply you get less rainfall. That means you are going to have less water in a river system. In this case, the Zambezi River will receive less water, and as a result, it will send less than usual amount of water into Lake Kariba. We can add numbers to simplify that explanation. When things are normal, if you put El Nino conditions aside, when you look at the normal cycle of the Zambezi River, so when it rains normally over a 12-month period, the Zambezi River can send about 40 billion or more, slightly more, into the lake, which is shared equally between ZESCO and Zimbabwe Power Company. So there are years when we're able to allocate ZESCO 20 to 22 billion cubic meters of water, as well as a similar amount due to the equity considerations to Zimbabwe Power Company. Now, in the El Nino conditions, such as what we have been going through, you get to the extreme end of drier conditions. So you have a reduction from the usual number of receiving 40 billion cubic meters of water over a 12-month period into Lake Kariba to a very low number, which is the case for the current year, 2024, of around 17 billion cubic meters of water. Now, it forces you to allocate less because you cannot allocate more when you don't have more water. So in the current year, we've been forced, because of the El Nino conditions taking us to the extremes when it comes to the lower level of water in a river system, the Zambezi River. We've been forced to allocate water which is less than usual to ZESCO Limited, which we allocated about 8 billion for them to use over the 12 months period, if you like, of 2024, and another 8 billion to Zimbabwe Power Company over the same period. Now, just imagine you are the one running ZESCO Limited, and to meet the needs of your customers, usually you get 20 billion, and suddenly you are receiving 8 billion. So that takes you to the extreme in terms of how much water is available for you to generate to meet the energy demands of your customers. So in short, El Nino conditions have created dry conditions, creating extremes, or if you like, drought. Drought is simply poor rains, and as a result, your Zambezi River, which is a river system we're working with, ZRA, sends less water, extremely less water, into the lake. So the little water that is in the Kariba, we have to use it sparingly so that it doesn't run out.
Reduced water levels coming to ZESCO. How has this impacted power generation?
As already mentioned by Zambezi River Authority, with a reduced water inflows into Lake Kariba, the quantity of water that has been allocated for power generation for ZESCO at Kariba has reduced to 8 billion cubic meters for the whole year. This is in comparison with the 15 billion in the previous year and 22.5 billion the year before that. With reduced water allocation for power generation at Kariba, and we use the water for purposes of generation, and the quantity of power that we can generate is proportional to the amount of water that we have for power generation. So this reduced availability of water means we cannot generate the way we've generated last year, or even where it was even higher the previous year. So this has meant that our average generation at Kariba, where we have an installed capacity of 1,080 megawatts, if we were to generate on an average level, we can only generate up to 215 megawatts continuously. Kafue Jiloa has also seen significant reduction in water inflows, the lowest we've recorded in the period that we've been recording water flows, which spans over 40 years. This year has recorded the lowest. So the impact is not just at Kariba for us, it's on our basins as well where we generate power. And the combined effect of reduced power generation from the two river systems is leading to reduced power supply. We cannot meet the national demand the way we are mandated to. And therefore this leads to some level of load shedding, other impacts that we have to take into account to try and ration the water that is available. And by so rationing the water, we also ration the power that we are giving to our customers.
To the Zambezi River Authority, I think we'll definitely come back to ZESCO and we'll look at this in a deeper way. But let me just find out from you, what technology do you use to regulate or measure this water balance and apportion it?
So what you've said is very key in terms of measurement. It so happens that the Zambezi River, in terms of the hydrological database for the Zambezi River Authority, we have over 100 years of data in terms of knowing how much water has been flowing in the Zambezi River over any year. We've got over 100 years, and slightly more actually. Now, we call that the hydrological record for the river. How much water was flowing on this day in this year. We have over 100 years of data. Now, what it means is people are always near the river, taking measurements of how much water is flowing, the speed of the river and the volume. And that is kept and is very useful when it comes to dealing with the issues of knowing how much water to allocate at any given time. So as ZRA, we've got a large data set of information when it comes to the behavior of the Zambezi River, whether it's in times of climate change or not. So now, in undertaking that process, the specifics are that for Zambezi River Authority, we do have what we call measuring points along the river itself. The specific language that we use is gauging stations. In other words, I've got workmates at various points of the Zambezi River whose job is to take measurements nearly almost the whole day and then transmit that information for adding up, totaling. Because just remember that that water has not yet arrived at Lake Kariba, but it helps us in managing how much water is kept in the reservoir. Now, these days, technology has advanced, so where we are coming from, the recording of that information from a river system such as the Zambezi was done manually using gauge plates, and then a gauge reader writes in a book and then sends an SMS or something like that. Now there's technology where you can put probes or pieces of equipment into the river and it extracts information in real time and it transmits in real time. So as Zambezi River Authority, we've embraced that technology, backed up by the usual use of radios and manual systems in case there's a challenge with the technology. And that is helping us when it comes to the speed and efficiencies involved when knowing how much water is coming into Lake Kariba. Now, once you're able to know what's coming, then you can easily apportion and keep some for a rainy day. You wouldn't want to allocate everything and run out at the same time. Now, the process to apportion the water to the power station, whether it's Kariba South Bank, in Zimbabwe, Kariba North Bank, in Zambia, as the case may be. There now we have a sit down with the people or institutions concerned. We present the information as collected so far for a particular year. For example, the information we've gathered for the current year, we started in October 2023, and we gather that information every day. Now, in our weekly engagements with ZESCO and the partner institution, Zimbabwe Power Company, that is the information that is presented as we discuss how much water to allocate to them at the beginning of the year first, and then as we discuss how the Zambezi River itself is performing. Are we going to ensure that that amount of water allocated is what actually happens in terms of arrivals, in terms of volumes of water? If there's a variation, there are decisions we must make at that point in view of sustaining the reservoir and power generation operations at Kariba.
I'm putting you in a tight corner a little bit, but I'd like to find out, when you look at ZESCO, how much of what you have allocated to them is remaining right now?
Okay.
Because that question is coming from the premise that we are experiencing increased hours of load shedding. Is that owing to the depletion of the water? How much is remaining right now?
First of all, ZESCO Limited has not run out of water. They were allocated some water and they still have some portion remaining. They are just implementing measures which he referred to ensure that the water that is remaining, remember the allocation was less. We did not allocate them 20 billion, we allocated them 8. Now, for that 8, as they use it to last to the end of the year, they have to make decisions as we brief them in our weekly meetings. So they are sparingly using the water so that whatever is available, recalling that the allocation is not the usual big amount, takes all of us to the end of the year. So they still have water, what we call in our world, a balance of water on their allocation for 2024. They are just being careful in the way they use it so that it does not run out before the year ends. So be assured, the only thing I can add here, if an institution running a power station runs out of water, you cannot cover that, because power generation uses water and not air to turn the turbines to generate electricity. If you go to Kariba now, Kariba North Bank is producing electricity. There's no blackout. So they still have water. You cannot hide it when water has run out because the machines shut down. There's no water to use.
So there's no possibility that this 8 billion cubic meters of water can run out, Mr. Lwindi, at some point before we reach October or November?
The 8 billion that we have will give us an average generation of 215 megawatts. The power consumption by our customers is not an even amount of power being drawn. It varies on a daily basis. In the morning, you have higher demand. In the evenings, the demand again shoots up. In the evenings, it goes down. So our generation does not, strictly speaking, sit at the 215. When you go on an annual basis, again, the power demand varies from month to month, depending on what is happening. When you get into the cold season, you might get people that want to use electric heaters. You get farming communities that do winter irrigated crops, such as wheat. And this year we've seen increasingly for maize as well, to supplement the deficit from the rain-fed crop. And so during those periods, you anticipate your demand to increase. And therefore, there are periods when your generation will be slightly higher, and other periods that the generation requirements then reduce. So when we look at our generation profile, we look at the 8 billion that we are given, and we know we have to stretch the 8 billion from 1st January to 31st December. Usage in the quotas will vary slightly, but the end target is that we anticipate to go to the end of the year, and therefore the generation will vary slightly from month to month, quarter to quarter, to meet various demand requirements.
Let's talk about something that I think this country has been discussing for many years, the energy mix. What are you doing as ZESCO? We've been here before. We are here again. In terms of alternative sources of power, what are we doing?
Yes, currently Zambia as a whole, we sit in a precarious position. Our generation is predominantly hydro, and the hydro is what we are seeing being affected by these global weather changes, El Nino that comes in once in a while. And therefore, we've been trying to look at means at how we can improve our generation mix to reduce the impact of weather pattern changes. Currently, hydro sits at 85% of all the generation. The other forms of generation currently, we have thermal, 300 megawatts out of Mamba collieries. We have a bit of solar in the Lusaka Mount Facility Zone area. We have new solar that has been commissioned by the Copper Belt Energy Corporation. And we have Ndola Energy that is using heavy fuel oil. The position that we sit in obviously leads us to where we are, where predominantly it's a hydro. So we've been looking at means of diversifying this mix to try and get a bit more energy mix from the source point of view. And the main measures that are being taken in to account for that change is the development of phase 2 of Mamba, where we expect to generate another 300 megawatts. Construction of the phase 2 is expected to be commencing this year, having mobilized the financing for that project. We have been looking at other companies that also, as independent power producers, want to invest in coal. We have quite huge coal resources currently being developed in the southern province, the Mambas Nazongwe area, where we want to construct additional thermal power generation. Thermal, by the way, does not get affected by these weather changes.
From both your institutions deal with this community engagement, how much are we doing in engaging members of the community and stakeholders in sustainable water as well as energy practices? What are we doing in this area?
I'll just share a recent experience. Both ZESCO and Zambezi River Authority were at the Zambia International Trade Fair in Ndola, which ended the other day. And there was a lot of heightened communication with the public that came there. It was clear we needed to do more, and we are going to do more. But we actually made a deliberate move to take advantage of that public gathering event to share information to do with the low water levels at Kariba, what they mean on the part of ZESCO, who took the explanations when it comes to generation, some of the issues and strategies that ZESCO has talked about in terms of energy conservation, and of course, everything else that is being covered in your question.
ZESCO, briefly.
For ZESCO, in terms of customers, the takeaway we need to get from our customers is we are in this together. We can only help you to a certain extent. We need your contribution, especially during this period when we've seen this heavy deficit in terms of power requirements. The customers have a huge impact that they can play in terms of conserving power by using alternative sources for their energy requirements. For purposes of cooking, one of the cheapest sources, probably even cheaper than electricity, is to transition from electricity into gas cooking. Now gas cookers are readily available in the country. We have all these oil marketing companies that provide the gas LPG that is used for cooking. And if we are to reserve the energy that we currently use on our electric cookers, that would go a long way in reducing the power demand on the system. On the other hand, we've also seen a lot of customers that have bought inverters. Some of them have also bought solar panels to supply their inverters. And we encourage all customers, as you buy your inverter, also buy your solar panels, because during the day you can get your electricity requirements, especially for entertainment and lighting in the evening, from your solar systems. And that reduces demand from the national grid, where you specifically just buy an inverter which gets power from the grid. It might serve you, but it does not contribute in reducing power demand from the national grid, because the power that you are using to charge your batteries through the inverter is still being absorbed from the grid. So our emphasis now to our customers is don't end at just buying an inverter. Back it up with an appropriate number of solar panels that you can install on your rooftop so that you can generate your own power. And with that, you actually see your energy bills reducing significantly just by adding those solar panels.
I would like to thank you both for these insights. You've been extremely useful on Power Talk. Thank you so much for coming. Engineer Christopher Chense, Director, Water Resources and Environmental Management from the Zambezi River Authority. Thank you so much. And Engineer Wesley Lwindi, Director, Power Generation at ZESCO. Thank you for appearing on Power Talk. That's it for today on this episode of Power Talk. Thank you for joining us. Let us all do our part in conserving energy and supporting sustainable practices. Join us next week as we continue our discussion on alternative energy solutions for Zambia. Until then, stay informed and stay empowered. Bye for now.